Okay, here we go. Yours may be in a different order, so just scroll to the one that I am on. Okay. Students at a university were split into two groups and each received a different text for a philosophy course. One group received a traditional textbook while the other received an interactive textbook on a tablet computer. After the course, the final exam grades between the two groups of students was compared. Okay, so like I said yesterday, I like to do the independent first. Okay, so I asked myself, if I conducted this experiment, what would I change between the different trials? And what changed between the two groups we're talking about? The type of books that they received. Okay? So, type of book used in class would be my independent variable. Okay? Because that is what changed between each groups. And then the final exam grade is the result. Okay? So, depending on what type of book they used for class, they got a different grade. The result is always going to be the dependent variable. Okay? Let's look at the next one. Drinking energy drinks makes people more aggressive.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to test this, what would you change between like each person or something?
Different drink.
The energy drink. Okay, you're going to change the energy drink. You can't change their aggressive behavior, right? You don't have control over that. So you can change this. That's going to be independent. The result is if they're aggressive or not. That's going to be the dependent. Okay? Spending time with a family dog decreases the amount of stress someone is feeling. What is spending time with a family dog? Independent. Okay, and as a result, that's the amount of stress that someone's feeling. All right? Eating breakfast in the morning increases the ability to learn in school. What is ability to learn? That one is dependent. Okay, that's the result of eating breakfast. Okay, so you would change eat breakfast or not eat breakfast. Okay, so that's your independent. The result is can you learn better? All right. What? What is? Are you saying this one is dependent? Yeah. A comprehension test was given to students after they had studied textbook material either in silence or with the television turned on. Yes, that one is dependent. Good job. And then what you changed to studying with or without the TV, that's going to be independent. Okay, so hopefully that's making a little bit more sense to you guys. Go ahead and submit that for me. And let's take some notes. Alright, so what I want to do on the back of our dry mix notes, okay, is talk about graphing. Okay, we kind of mentioned it a little bit yesterday with the y-axis and x-axis, but now we're going to actually put it to use and graph some stuff. So, what I want you to do is we're going to write down 5 steps to graphing. All right, that's the first thing we're going to write down. I would keep this at the top of your paper. So, steps to graphing. There's going to be 5 of these that we talk about. God, all my markers are doo-doo. Buckets. There's a good one. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do, so you're going to graph after you conduct an experiment. Okay? And after you have collected all of this data. All right? On your assignment today, you're going to be given data and you're going to graph it. All right? So once you have all of your data, the first thing that you got to do is determine what's your independent variable and what's your dependent variable. So that's our first step. Determine what the dependent and independent variables are. Okay, that's the first step. So kind of what we just did in our warm-up. Read the situation. Decide what's your dependent, what's your independent. Now remember from yesterday, What axis does my dependent go on? Think about the word dry. The y-axis. Okay, so my dependent is going to go on my y-axis. My independent would go on my x-axis whenever I go to graph these things. Okay, that's what you got to always remember. Dependent on the y, independent on the x. Our second step is label both axes. I don't know if there's supposed to be a comma or apostrophe there or not, but we're going to go with it. Like this to make it plural. I don't know. We're going to go for it. Whatever. Label both axes with quantity and units. So I would say an example of this is maybe I'm measuring plant growth of my rose bushes. Okay, so I would label one axis plant growth in centimeters. Okay, so this is what I'm measuring and this is my unit. Okay, it always has to have both. Step 3, title your graph. And you're just that's gonna be based on whatever you are graphing. Okay, that's gonna change every single time. The fourth step is you're gonna plot points using your data. And then step 5 is you're going to connect points with line. With a line sounds a little bit better. Connect points with a line. Okay, I'm going to give you all a second to write that down, and then we're going to copy down a table that I have here, and we're going to graph it. All right, and then after you get done graphing it, you get to move on to your assignment for today. Okay? So write that down. And then we'll start copying down the table of points. Benny, you got it? What number are you on?
I'm on 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me take a picture of mine and then you can copy mine down. That's my fault. All right, let's draw our table. So make sure you leave room for a table and for your graph. Okay, so I have my table here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, make it look something like that. You need 5 on each side. And then we're going to plug in some numbers. Leave room for a graph. We're going to have a graph over here.
Coach Seeger?
Yes?
Can you send Benjamin Brown to the counseling center, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Yep. Awesome. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to make up numbers using our bowling ball example from yesterday that we wrote down. Okay? So, this is going to be my ramp angle. And then this over here is going to be how far it traveled, the distance that the bowling ball traveled. Okay? And then I just made these numbers up just for the sake of graphing. Okay? Let's say that whenever my ramp was at 0 degrees, the ball traveled 2 inches. When my ramp was at 10 degrees, the ball traveled 4 inches. And we're going to keep going in that pattern. So 20 degrees, 6 inches. 30 degrees, 8 inches. 40 degrees, 10 inches. Okay, so there's our data. Now we got to graph it. Okay, and we're going to use the steps to graphing that we talked about. So it says determine the dependent and independent variable first. So ramp angle and distance. Which one is my independent variable? Which one did I change in the experiment? The ramp angle. Okay, so I know that this one over here is going to be my independent variable. The distance is my dependent variable. So what axis is my ramp angle going to go on? My independent. The x-axis, because I think of the word mix. There's an I and an x. So independent goes on the x-axis. So which one of these is my x? The bottom one. Okay, this is my x-axis. This one is my y. So our step 2 for graphing says label the axes with quantity and units. So what could I label my x-axis using this information?
Distance. Ramp.
With units. So it would be ramp angle in degrees. Okay? So ramp angle in degrees. Okay, it always has to have a unit. Ramp angle in degrees. What's a good title for my y-axis?
Distance traveled.
In inches. Okay, don't forget your unit. So my y-axis, distance in inches. Distance in inches. Alright, this next one, number 3, it says create a title for your graph. Okay? Now this does not have to be super awesome. Okay, you're not going to win an award for best title, so don't try too hard. Okay? All that I would do is distance traveled at different ramp angles. That's what I'm going to title this graph. Distance traveled with different ramp angles. So I kind of just combined my two axes labels. Okay, now we can start plotting. All right. Ramp angle. Okay, I'm just going to use these numbers 0, 10, 20, 30, and 40. So 0 is always right here. 10, 20,
21.
30, 40. I try to make them the same distance apart. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my distance, but I'm going to go in twos. Alright, so I have 0 down here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And now I can plot. So at 0 degrees, I was at 2 inches. Let me get a different color here. 0 degrees, 2 inches, I'm here. 10 degrees, 4 inches. 20 degrees, 6 inches. 30 degrees, 8 inches. 40 degrees, 10 inches. And then I can connect my dots. Okay, so lucky for you, most of the graphing practice that you're going to do as an assignment, it's going to have a graph for you with all the lines in it, so you don't have to come up with these distances on your own. Okay? Now, all my virtual kids are going to have to do this assignment on Kami, but I'm going to let you guys do it on paper. It's a bunch of graphing, so I recommend doing it on paper. If you prefer Kami, please go do Kami, but I hate Kami personally. So, I'm going to hand out paper copies. You're going to read the situation and do the graph on the front, and then you have a different situation, and you're going to graph on the back. Okay? Whenever you finish this, make sure your name's on it and turn it into the tray when you're done. Sound like a plan?